Madam Chair, Madam Pro Tem is on the committee next door, so we're going to try and get her back over there. So we're going to start off with SB 194.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I appreciate letting me go first. I know there are people who have things they want to say. I'm going to ask that we first look at the amendment. It's Amendment 1471.
Staff, if you go ahead and pass out 1471, please.
It basically totally changed from the original bill, took a different approach as to the issues we were trying to address. I can go through, if you'd like, we can go through the amendment.
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
if you would. And this is an amendment. Senator Mizell has been working with a lot of different groups on this bill. I know it's been an important bill and a very hot topic over the last few weeks, and she's been very diligent in her work with both members of the legislature and the public, I know, and so these are pretty significant amendments to the bill. And so if you would like to discuss them, the members have them in front of us.
If we just looking at the amendments, if you just going through, because it looks like there's 4 pages, so it looks very lengthy, but Amendment 1 and 2 are technical. Amendment 3 creates the right of action. And when you look at that, it's pretty clear that it's for only Class A general permitted establishments. And goes through, just to make the point, it provides that the right of action in this bill is in addition to any other right of action otherwise provided by law. There's been some back and forth that there is already a right of action in place. Amendment 4 is technical. Amendment 5 removes from the bill RS 149311. Amendment 6 removes from the bill the section dealing with prohibiting employment of minors. It removes a reference to having to be 21 to enter the establishment, and it removes references to bartenders having to be 21. Amendment 7 removes references to having to be 21 to enter or be employed at a Class A establishment. Amendments 8 through 12 deal specifically with the prohibited acts, which doesn't allow any person under the age of 18 to enter the establishment. It requires an identification check, makes an exception for the musicians, which had been a problem. Amendment 13 increases the fines across the board. It now provides for increased fines if a permit holder is found to have served or sold alcohol to anyone under the age of 21. So we addressed the full scope of the fine increase and focused only on the underage drinking component. It also requires that if an order or agreement is entered instead of an administrative hearing, the scanner will be required. Amendment 14 is technical. Amendment 15 removes the references to being 21 to enter the establishment. And Amendment 16 is the same proposed law that is in the high alcohol content portion of the bill and adding it to the low alcohol content portion of the bill. So it's any establishment serving alcohol. It again makes the exception for the musician. So it basically changed the direction of the bill altogether, but still hoping to have the impact intended.
Yeah, and if I can, the original bill, as we all know, started off with, disallowing individuals 18, 19, and 20 from going into any of these establishments, from
Right.
working in them as a musician or as an employee,
Right.
and whatnot. And you've pulled that back to still allow those individuals to enter the facilities if the facility allows it, because there are facilities that do not allow an individual to be in there if they're under 21, and they still have that right as an individual establishment to choose that, as well as individual jurisdictions have that right to change that law if they would like, such as I think Shreveport and some others.
Right, right.
So they're still having that. But what you've done is gone in and you've enhanced the penalties that were really low for being a minor and being in an establishment drinking or having a fake ID, for being an establishment who is caught serving minors.
Right.
And if you are caught serving minors, then you will have to have an enhanced scanning system to check IDs when they go in, and then, of course, enhanced penalties
Right,
for serving underage individuals, those under 21.
right,
And that's really, that kind of a little summation
right.
of where we are.
I think it answered a lot of the concerns that I'd been hearing.
I think it does, and I know it's a significant amendment, and I hope we have a significant amount of red cards here, and I hope they take a minute as you're presenting some things to kind of listen to that and see if it resolves some of those issues or concerns. We do have a motion by Senator Henry. He's going to propose 1471. Members propose adoption of 1471. Do we have any further discussion on 1471? Do we have any objection to 1471? Hearing no objection, that will be adopted. That is basically the bill. Would you like to say any more on it? Or we do have some.
I would. I really would like an opportunity to just
Yes.
kind of lay out how we got here.
Please, yes, and then we do have some people who did wish to speak in
Oh, no,
favor and oppose.
I'll talk
please.
very fast.
Yeah, no, please lay it out. It's your bill.
I think it's important to know that since 1996, the law in Louisiana has said that 21 is the legal age to drink. Originally, the bill had prohibited the 18 to 20-year-olds from the alcohol establishments, and that was because of issues we've seen, not just issues we've seen this year, but issues we've all seen over our adult life. The amendment that we're just discussing allows for a right of action on an establishment that would illegally serve minors to the point where harm results. And I want to be very clear, this is a bar who serves a minor. A minor is someone under the legal age, 21, in regarding to alcohol. That in itself is breaking the law, and then the minor is harmed or causes harm. Currently, the law is silent on that. The amendment allows clarity, and I think it begs the question, if we can agree that an 18-year-old is the least responsible party in the transaction, but currently bears the full responsibility for being served illegally in Louisiana right now. And that's what this is addressing. Right now, in a transaction where an 18-year-old is illegally served or overserved and hurts himself or herself or hurts someone else, he's the most responsible party because we have nothing in law to protect it from the other way. The bar is licensed by the state of Louisiana, and with that comes an expectation of following the laws of the state. In other states, bars have responsibility for their actions. 45 states in this country have dram shop laws in various strengths. Frankly, most of them are for full age, not just for minors like we're trying to address here. Alabama's dram shop law actually applies to customers served at all ages, and if they can do it in Tuscaloosa, I believe we can do it in Louisiana. It basically makes a business serving alcohol liable to anyone injured by having served someone to intoxication or causing injuries. This amendment applies only to bars serving minors. Again, that's breaking the law on the face of it and deserving of its own distinction in our response. If our culture wants to see minors allowed to drink to excess, then we need to change the law to allow drinking at 18. I'm told that any restriction that has been discussed through the conversation on this bill will cause unintended consequences. We have seen unintended consequences repeatedly. There is heartbreak of people I've spoken to in this room today because of the unintended consequences. We have consequences from what I've seen, from the lack of will, from our lack of action to address what we all know is a loophole in the law. Recently, a bar's license was revoked in response to a tragedy that frankly shook all of us, but we should have had a process in place to protect the current law that 21 is the legal age to drink. We have protected illegal actions by our lack of action. And the amended bill puts the responsibility on the person who holds the license to uphold the laws of the business, and every business has a responsibility to meet that expectation. Bars have no, just as the chairman mentioned, bars have no legal requirement to have minors enter. They're making the decision to allow that. And by doing that, they're taking the responsibility of the process. So it's a choice they make. To make it easier to follow the law within the amendment, there is a requirement for a scanner to be used. There's violation penalties that are increased on the amendment are only on violations involving underage serving, and that is appropriate for the weight of the violation. The cleansing period is where the violations are erased and start fresh. They were 3 years. Now we've moved them up to 6 years, so the violations stay on the record for 6 years. All workforce limitations based on age are removed. The prohibition to enter is removed. The bill simply places the responsibility on the business given a license to legally serve alcohol to do only that, and provides consequences if they do it illegally. This has meant a lot to me, and I've never encountered the opposition that I've encountered on this, and I've done some rather dicey bills. This was a lesson to me on the power holding these loopholes in place. And something stuck with me that I'd heard recently, and it's justice is giving to one what is his due. That's what this is trying to happen. We're trying to make it possible that justice is provided to the person who has his due. And just so we all can get it out of the way, I've met with the AG's office, I've met with the governor. They both believe the amendment stands in legal position in an appropriate way for the state of Louisiana, meeting the constitutional requirements. We can talk about the technical aspects of the bill, but I feel better. I've got that out of my system. If you want me to move, I can let people.
I know you've worked very hard on this, and it's near and dear to your heart. So I appreciate all the heartfelt work that you've put into it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We have some individual. We don't have any lights up here, and I guess I'd just say we know that this isn't a fail-safe. That people are still going to get around the system, and people are still going to break. But hopefully, maybe it's a step in that direction. It makes it a little harder. We have some people who have white cards who are willing to provide information if requested. Calvin Faber with Louisiana Wallet, which would be the ID verification method if they went to the second stage, I would assume.
It wouldn't be, if I might add, it's not necessary to use LA Wallet. I know ATC has scanner devices that would be appropriate, so the establishment can choose the scanner. Mm-hmm.
Good to know. Kim Hunter-Reed with the Board of Regents, here to provide information if requested, and Ernest Leger, who's the Commissioner of Alcohol and Tobacco. Does anybody have any? Ernest, Ms. Leger, would you come up? Any of the other white cards have anything to add to it? Okay.
Good morning. How are you, Senator?
We have a question from.
Good morning, sir. Ernest Leger, Commissioner of Louisiana Alcohol and Tobacco Control.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. We have Senator Talbot for a question.
Good morning, Mr. Leger. Do you have a copy of the amendments?
Yes, sir.
All right. At the bottom of page 3, on line 54, when it says the commissioner may, in lieu of or in addition to revocation or suspension of a permit issued under the authority of this chapter, impose the following schedule of fines, and then they list under, I guess, the rest of page 4, and it talks about you're going to require that a Class A general retail permit holder have a verification age machine that verifies their age. I guess that's when you scan the driver's license. So obviously, if someone comes in who's underage and was served, and they get caught doing that, you can fine the establishment with penalties and suspensions. If they come in with a fake ID that passes the scan, do you have the discrepancy to not hold the bar responsible? If the bar did everything right, they come in with the ID, it's their picture, it meets they scan it and they come in, can the bar still be held responsible if that person gets overserved?
Yes, sir. In my opinion, the bar can be held responsible. There's a misnomer that alcohol establishments are required by law to check ID. That's not the case. They are held responsible for the consequences of not checking ID, and it's left up to the individual establishments to determine what is their policy with respect to this activity, right? Regardless of what happens with respect to an ID, from the regulatory perspective, you as a bar owner are responsible for what happens at your establishment and the selling to an underage person. However, that is where the discretion of the commissioner comes in with respect to a hearing. If you are taking every action within your power, as evidenced by a machine, by having folks placed at the door, by having all of your servers RV certified, by taking training classes and passing inspections from the ATC, then you are proving and showing your intent to follow the law to the best of your ability, and that is taken into consideration with regard to how the issue is addressed.
Right, so you have discrepancy there. If they're doing everything right
That's
and they just
absolutely
happen to get in on a fake ID that passes the scan and there's just, the person looks clearly old enough but isn't, and doing everything right, and the person just gets in there and there's just nothing they can,
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right.
okay. All right, that's it.
Because it has come to our attention that there are some very sophisticated fake identification sources out there, and if the bar is doing everything right and is duped, then there is some concern there.
Yeah,
Now,
and a citation may be written, but there will be an opportunity for that business owner to show the steps that they've taken, as in all cases, in order to ensure public safety and ensure that that the folks who are not legally entitled to have a drink don't have access to a drink.
okay. Now, some of the increased fines and penalties go to enforcement. I know in your agency in particular, you could stand to use some more enforcement personnel.
Yes, sir. It's not a secret. I think I take every opportunity I can to remind elected officials and the members of the public that our agency has 68 people total. And we're talking about, at most, at any time, 30 agents statewide. It makes us very reactive with respect to major responsibilities associated with alcohol, tobacco, and CBD. It is a very challenging task. So if there is an opportunity to provide resources to this agency to do our job to the best of our ability, I'm all in favor, and certainly Senator Mizell, that was part of our conversation, and she supports that effort as well.
We do, and we know that you'll use that authority responsibly, both
I pray for that every day, sir.
both in the issuing end and in the use of the
Yes, sir.
potential increased revenue from it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We don't have any further questions. Thank you
Thank you, sir.
for being here with it. Do you have anything, I guess, let me ask you, since you're really at the source of this, or in the middle of the source of this, do you have anything to add past that?
If I had a concern, and I'm not surprising Senator Mizell by stating this, I'd rather not cherry pick the types of institutions or the types of permits that this applies to. Either you sell or serve alcohol and you're held to the standard, or you're not. I think in its present form, it's only certain types of establishments that this would apply to. I think that makes regulation a little more challenging and certainly a lot more confusing for the members of the public.
And I was a little concerned with this bill in creating two different classes, that you have some bar restaurants that are very, very popular and very busy, and and there's really no division between their bar and their restaurant. In some of these instances.
We're getting to a point where the types of products that are offered and the types of business models for how alcohol reaches the public are certainly getting beyond what our regulatory scheme and our statutes allow at this time, and we may need to start giving some attention to changing some of those things such that it makes sense in the market. And we had that conversation as well, and maybe working on legislation in the future in order to address that. For instance, we're talking about bars in particular, and I'm not trying to single any particular group out or any particular business, because I support all businesses with the industry. But there are points of service within other permitted types of businesses that this would not apply to, where it should. They're tap rooms and distilleries and breweries. There are points of service within certain grocery stores, right? We've got some unique situations out there, and fair is fair, and certainly clarity, I think anybody will agree with respect to how we regulate and how the rules apply, is about more valued than a lack of clarity. So if I had my druthers, I would appreciate, it would make our jobs a lot easier.
Okay. We have a question from Senator McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say I'm in support of the bill as amended, Senator, and I know that you've worked hard on this, and I appreciate you bringing it. There is some interesting questions that were brought up. Senator Talbot, for example. I mean, if a bar is doing everything that it possibly can in terms of scanning, and it scans, and I would encourage maybe thinking about creating some sort of rebuttable presumption in terms of a defense, and maybe that can, I don't know if that can be worked into the bill at some point or not, but.
Senator, I understand your point, but we have that presently.
Okay.
The commissioner sits as the hearing officer,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is a hearing that takes place. Evidence is put on. If the evidence doesn't substantiate the charge, then the charge goes away. Beyond that, if there is a disagreement in terms of the decision that was made at that level, there's an automatic appeal right to a district court to have an independent trier of fact go over the case anew and determine whether or not there was error or bias. And I'm happy to say, certainly since I've been here, that the agency has never been reversed in the few times that has occurred.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator McMahon. Thank you, Commissioner. I know that you have worked well with both sides of the industry as well as the concerned individuals. So thank you. All right. We have some individuals who are present and have indicated that they would like to speak in support of this measure. If you would like to speak, if you could make your way to the table as I call your name: Paula Zachary, Lauren LeBlanc, and Brandy Melissa. And I'm going to ask not only you ladies, but everyone out there, we have quite a number of cards, both in favor and opposition. So two things, please. We want you to say what you feel is necessary, because we want to hear from you, but to try and be concise and non-repetitive, and to please keep it on the subject matter, because we have some that tend to strike quite far from the subject matter. Thank you. Would you like to go first? So just introduce yourselves for the record before you speak, please.
Good morning. I'm Paula Zachary, and I am here in favor of the bill with the amendments because we have too many deaths of our young people. And I appreciate the young people here today, and I see they are in opposition, and that's okay. In 18 to 20-year-olds, we had in 2021 for DWIs 411 in the state of Louisiana. In 2020, 344. In 2019, 537. In 2018, 595. That's one too many. My son Brandon, and this is his picture, was 19. I don't know how to hold it here. He had been in an establishment in Tangipahoa Parish that he was able to go in and drink until 3 a.m. the next morning. I have his bank records here that proved what he purchased in that place that night. And when he left there, he drove impaired and crashed. He didn't make the crash. And I've had to live the last 15 years without my son. We went to the board, ATC, whatever it's called, to see what we could do. And we were told back then we didn't have enough money to fight them. This law would make that easier for us parents that have to go through what we go through. My son was wrong for being there, but we've all been 19, 18, some 20. We make mistakes, but we've got to do something. We've got to start somewhere. And if this is a baby step, I hope you're willing to make this step with us. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're sorry for your loss, and we thank you for continuing to keep him in everyone's mind and memory by coming to continue to tell your story.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, good morning. My name is Lauren LeBlanc. I am Madison Brooks' godmother. Sorry. Her mother, Ashley, asked me to speak on her behalf. She is currently in New York, working to share Madison's story nationwide. She's working with media outlets, universities, foundations, inspirational speakers. She's working to shine a bright light on the dangers of underage drinking and help to promote safety amongst college students. For those who may not be familiar with Maddie's story, I will take a few minutes to explain what a special person we have lost and the tragedy surrounding her death. My niece Madison was bubbly and loving. She was kind, bright, and passionate. And Maddie hoped to one day become an attorney or a news reporter, just like many of you. She was passionate about helping others find justice and being a very loud voice. Maddie was a sophomore at LSU, 19 years old, when her life was cut short. On January 14th, Madison and her friends chose to celebrate the return to school after a long Christmas holiday. They got together, they got ready, they went to a local bar. Maddie was served drinks at the bar by her friends and acquaintances who worked there. Far too many drinks. Her judgment was severely impaired, and she left the bar with 4 strangers who offered her a ride home. Madison never made it home. She was instead raped by multiple men in the back of a car, led out of the vehicle, struck by a very large truck, and killed. So here we are today. Her family is now left with a giant hole, but a mission. Our goal is to prevent this tragedy from ever happening again. Looking back on that night, we have identified several ways that this could have been avoided. I know that there have been some amendments to the bill, and this was prepared before I heard the amendments, but I'd still like to read them.
Sure.
The first thing we've noticed is the most obvious. Maddie should have never been served, let alone to such extremes. Her BAC at the time of death was .319, which is well over the legal limit. We believe that she was served heavily because the bartenders were both under 21 and consuming alcohol themselves. They were not limiting her intake. They did not even notice her intake. The way our current laws read, as you well know, a person between the ages of 18 and 20 can serve alcohol. How can a person be allowed to serve alcohol and not consume it? It just does not make any sense to me. I believe that if a person is old enough for alcohol, not old enough for alcohol, then they should not be able to handle it at all. Had the bartenders been older, wiser, sober, I believe they could have used sensible judgment and Maddie would not have been served so heavily. Another thing we've noticed in the opinions of many, Maddie really had no purpose being there at all, nor 3 of the 4 perpetrators in her act of violence, whose ages were 17 and 18. Louisiana's current laws allow for 18 to 20-year-olds to enter bars but not drink. All of us in this room know that this law is failing our young students and it is not upheld properly. Unfortunately, there seems to be a trend in Louisiana of turning a blind eye to young adults, finding loopholes in our current system. These young adults enter bars because they can, and once inside, it is very easy for them to consume alcohol. It is not a secret that goes on behind closed doors. It is out in the open. It's widespread, and in my opinion, done for profit. I believe it's time for Louisiana to join the rest of the country and prohibit anyone from under 21 from entering a bar or serving alcohol. Or at the very least, please support the bill. My niece Madison is not the only soul lost to the culture of underage drinking in Louisiana, and she will not be the last, unfortunately. Maddie is no longer here to use her loud, powerful voice. So we, her family, are here to speak for her. You have a priceless opportunity at your hands, thanks to Senator Mizell, to help close the loopholes, making it so easy for young adults to consume alcohol. You have an opportunity to save precious lives, like my niece. As a mother of 4, I look to you with hope, and I ask you to please think of the young adults in your own lives and ask yourself how you can make a difference and maybe help them. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and thank you for considering this crucial piece of legislation. Please support Senator Mizell, our family, Maddie's legacy, and SB 194. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBlanc, and we're all gives you our deepest sympathy on your loss there in a tragic situation that should have never happened. And we thank you for having the courage to come and speak with us today and tell Maddie's story and encourage you to continue your work in that path. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brandy. For y'all that have told me that I'm the strongest person you know, I honestly think you just heard the voice of the strongest person in this state right now. For the last 15 years, I have lived less than a mile away from Reggie's. As y'all know, for decades, Reggie's has served minors alcohol. They used to frequent the corner store and right across the street with their underage bands, stoned out of their mind, drunk, walking in the stores, asking for more alcohol, and the store owners and their cashiers would see their bands and tell them to leave. If things were done the way they should have been done decades ago, Maddie would still be here today. And for the kids that think this is a joking matter, most of y'all know I have a brain and a skull that looks like I had a frontal craniotomy from the effects of what alcohol can do to somebody. So please, for the sake of future victims to alcohol, underage or otherwise, pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melissa. We do have two more individuals who had indicated they are in support and wishing to speak. Gene Mills with the Family Forum and Will Hall with the Baptist Association. I don't see either one of them in here. Going once, going twice. Are they in the overflow room? We'll give them a second while I'm reading these other cards that are in support. There are, gentlemen, if you'd like to have a seat while I read these cards. In support, not wishing to speak, Hunter LeBlanc, Clary Carpenter, Kathleen Benfield, and Tom Costanza. Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for the opportunity to address what we believe is an important issue and a modest step in the right direction. Prompted by the Minimum Drinking Age Act, the Louisiana legislature, in compliance, set the minimum drinking age at 21, but allowed persons under 21 to be on the premise of establishments which provide alcohol. As you know, the dilemma of a two-tiered system of underage access came to light nationally, as was just explained in Matheson's story. Senator Mizell's Senate Bill 194, Cardam Act, is a modest effort to create a civil liability for bars only if the injured can prove harm to themselves or others. This effort is intended to pose as a deterrent from serving alcohol to the underage. Obviously, there is no perfect solution to the problem of excess consumption or of young people engaging in dangerous behavior which poses a threat to themselves and to others. However, as policymakers, we have a duty to ensure that the system of enforcement encourages responsible behavior. I think that's what Senator Mizell is attempting to do in her bill. This bill, as amended, is a modest step in the direction by providing civil liability as an incentive to implement due diligence and to discourage irresponsible behavior. Senator Mizell's bill creates a modest balance between free enterprise and age-restricted consumption. I appreciate your consideration and favorable support.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. There's no questions. Ms. Dahl?
I'm Dr. Will Hall, and I'm the Director for the Office of Public Policy with the Louisiana Baptist Convention. I'm representing about 1,600 congregations with about 500,000 baptized members. I've handed out a chart to just show you the kind of the problem that we face in the state in terms of alcohol. This data was taken before the COVID pandemic, but it's illustrative of the problem that we have already in our state with youth and alcohol. As you can see, that the Louisiana high schoolers already ranked #1 in the nation in alcohol use. In fact, if you look at the chart a little deeply there, you'll see that our state average is higher than any single school district in the nation. And just let that sink in for a minute. I'd also like to, I checked some numbers before I left my home this morning, and this is what I know about our high schoolers. 75% of our seniors are 18 years old. Another 12% are 19 years old. That means 87% of our high school seniors can go into Tiger Mike's or any of these other bars and be served alcohol, because you and I know that 18 to 20-year-olds are being served alcohol in these places, despite the restriction in our state. And while I do applaud and I do support this modest step by Senator Mizell, I would urge you to have the courage to restore the original language that would restrict 18 to 20-year-olds from going into bars. I've heard in a couple other conversations, people say, well, you know, if you're 18 years old, you can be drafted. Well, that's true. And you can serve in the military. I'm a retired naval aviator, and I can tell you what we did in the military. We didn't let 18 to 20-year-olds drink in states where it was prohibited. In fact, the Uniform Code Military Justice has this little legal process we call assimilation. And whatever state we were in, we would assimilate that state law, and they would be prosecuted under that. You know, we advertise, you know, join the Navy, see the world, but we really didn't want these young men to see the world. What we wanted them to do was to fly planes, drive ships, operate radar, stand a good watch, and you couldn't do that if you were drunk. And I would urge you to be even more stringent than what this amended language has and prohibit 18-year-olds from going into bars. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hall. We have no further questions. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That concludes those wishing to speak in support. We do have a number of cards in opposition and wishing to speak. If you can make your way to the table as I call your name as well. Eric Sundstrom, Gina Goins, Parker Whipple, we'll ask. Yeah. And we do, you are free to wave. So Eric Sundstrom's waving. Are you pulling your red card or are you just waving? Both? Okay. Do you know where some of the others are by chance? If you could ask them to come in. Gina Goins, Parker Whipple. She's waving also. Okay. Parker Whipple, Keanan Williams. Thank you. Keanan Williams. That's him. All right. Allison Rivera. Dwight Barnes. Ryan Haney. Katie Powers, maybe? Reading the handwriting. Dwight, you waved. Thank you. Allison Galpin. I see a wave back there. Okay, thank you. Andrew Kilshaw. Wave. John Williams. Jason Nay. All right. Alex Eady. Yes, ma'am. Hello. Doing well. Please come on in. Yeah, you can have a seat, anyone. State your name and.
I don't have much to say. My name is Kieran Williams. I am 20 years old. I work at Murphy's. I am a part-time pilot student. I just wanted to say that there are solutions to mitigate the problems. The law is not going to diminish the problem of underage drinking. The problem is not the age of the person, because these issues that have been going on could very well happen with people who are 21. The problem is our uneducated community and service industry workers. We need to stop pointing fingers and start educating our people. You cannot legislate morality. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you for coming and testifying today. We have a number of other red cards who are in opposition, not wishing to speak. Some of them may have changed their opinion on this since the amendment. What we're going to do is, since we have a whole number of them, we're going to read them into the record, and you will all be part of the record. Senator McMath. Hang on. There you go.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Madison and her family were actually my constituents, and I was very thankful for Senator Mizell to bring this bill and work as hard as she has in an attempt to address a tragedy, which is why I'll be making a motion to advance this bill as amended. But before I do, I want to take this opportunity, just because given that there are so many what seem to be folks that are in the hospitality industry, and it wasn't that long ago when I was, in Tigerland. But a lot of this, and Ms. LeBlanc hit on this a little bit, and as quite honestly as did the lady who just testified. A lot of this falls on us, and not just the folks that are up here, but you all that are in this room, to take care of each other. And I would just encourage you guys to do that when you find yourselves in certain positions and you see certain things. This world would be a lot better place if we were all responsible for not just ourselves, but for each other. And so please heed that if you can. And I'm speaking from some experience. So, Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to move Senate Bill 194 as amended.
Okay. We don't have any further cards or lights, so before we get to that, we're going to ask Madam Pro Tem if she'd like to come close on her instrument.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator McMath. I wasn't going to say anything because it's been incredibly moving to hear real-life stories that have gotten us here today. But I want all of us to leave here committed that this is a baby step. It's been referred to as a baby step. Mr. Leger said how much he needs to clean up to do his job in a way that he wants to see it done. And I think we're here and we can make that possible. So I thank you all for this conversation, and I just hope it's the beginning of further.
And if I could add one thing, we can pass as many laws as we want on as many subjects, but if either A, the enforcement is not there, or B, the public doesn't take some responsibility, and the bar owners and whatever it may be, and doesn't take some responsibility and follow that law, there's only so much that we can do as a legislature. So the laws are definitely in place. This is going to hopefully encourage people to follow them more if it gets through the system. But it's going to take. They have to be responsible themselves, just like several of the individuals here today have said. So with that, I wanted to add one more thing. It's refreshing to see so many young people here in the audience today. No matter your position on the item that you've chosen to come and take time out and participate, you do make a difference, and this is the first step in how things are done, and it is, again, encouraging to see all of you taking a stand. No matter what side you're on, you're here and you're participating, and I encourage you to do it more than just on issues such as this. With that, we have no further lights. We have a motion by Senator McMath to report Senate Bill 194 with amendments. Do we have any further discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that will be reported with amendments. Thank you, Madam Pro Tem.
Thank y'all. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Chairman.
you.